Hello, everyone, and welcome to A More Perfect Podcast. I am your host, Mike Winson. Today, we are getting to talk with Ally Sammarco. She is a social media and marketing specialist with the Democratic Party most of the time, but she was also former MAGA. And I thought it would be really interesting to sit down with her because there's just a lot of things going on. And we're gonna get a lot in a very short amount of time, but I'm really looking forward to this. Hi, Ally. Thanks for being here today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, how did you get into doing political stuff in the first place? Based on what I have seen, this seems to be like you kind of that was your start right away, even when you were working with the Republican Party.
Yeah, I feel like as a kid, I always had an affinity for politics. I mean, I was exposed to it at a very young age. I live right outside of DC. So a lot of what goes on here has to do with politics or the government. And so I was exposed to podcasts, talk radio, cable news, all the things. But a lot of it was right wing. And so I had a worldview that was shaped by Rush Limbaugh and Mark Levin and Sean Hannity. And so you can imagine what kind of information I was taking in and how that scared me into what was happening into our country. And so I immediately was like, I want to be involved. I want to do my part. I want to work for the Republican Party when I get older. At the time, I think I was like 14. And so I started doing what I could at the time, which was volunteering. And I interned for the local Republican Party headquarters in Arlington, Virginia. And I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I know what I want to do. And then around 2016, Donald Trump was elected and things started to shift. Obviously, the political landscape completely shifted. It went from Mitt Romney, who was a very well-spoken, kind of resolute guy, to this character who was now the leader of the Republican Party. And so I, at the time, supported him, but then I took a step back and I was like, I think I want to decide if I want to be involved in politics at this time or not. That was also right when I went to college, so it was like a time for choosing. And then I didn't think about halfway through my junior year in college, I was like, I don't think that I really want to pursue politics at this point in time. It seems too vitriolic. I don't really know if I fully align with what's going on. And I think I want to just stay out of it. And so that's what I did. And I majored in business and I plan to just work in sales or marketing or something like that. And then after college, I realized what was truly happening at that time in our country. And it was right around the time COVID started. And so it was something that truly affected everybody. And I was like, I know what I want to do and I want to get back into politics, but I don't want to be on the Republican side. Like, I don't want to do that. I know that. And I know how dangerous Donald Trump is. And so I got the fire reignited inside of me, but it was like to defeat whatever I had been working for prior. And so I feel like the love of politics and policy and government really never left. It just kind of reshaped itself.
It's always interesting to me, people that started on one side, started on the right and went to the left. What did you feel was that almost that tipping point? Like, what is the part, like, what change did you see that really made you question what you had believed to what you believe now?
I think Donald Trump exposed a lot of it. He's the kind of guy that he said the quiet part out loud. So all the things that Republicans were saying, which is like, we don't truly support that. We don't truly believe that. It was like Donald Trump was saying, we don't like immigrants. We want women at home. We don't want them. And or at least his followers were saying that too. The people that were speaking for him were saying, we don't want women in the workforce. We want them to be home with the kids. And so it was kind of like the facade that had been presented to me was lifted in a lot of ways. And I was like, okay, so all the things that you had kind of pushed under the rug were now coming to light. And then in addition to that, all the values that you said you cared about so much clearly weren't true. Because if you can support this kind of person who doesn't have integrity, doesn't have morals, doesn't have character, then you don't actually care about those things, And so it felt like I was waiting a little bit. I was waiting for the dam to break. I was waiting for someone to, and it kind of did a little bit, but really not ever in a way that was like, okay, the Republican Party is fully as a whole, rejecting this person. It was like, they still continue to embrace him. And that was at the point where I was like, I don't think this is what I signed up for. This is not the party that I thought it was. They don't care about the things that I thought they cared about. And I was like, I'm actually going to take the time now to re-educate myself on what it is that the Democratic Party stands for. And that's when everything kind of made sense to me.
How long did that process take? Because that's one of the things that I've noticed from a lot of people. Because there's so much going on now, I think a lot of people that are realizing that maybe they shouldn't have supported this administration, I think they're trying to make that transition really quick. We're seeing a lot of things going on where they're trying to come together. And it sounds to me like it took some work for you to get to the point that you could actually interact in a more healthy way with based on what you had grown up learning.
Yeah. I would say the process was probably the start of 2016 until the end of 2019. So it was,
Okay.
yeah, what is that? 4
So
years?
around 3 years.
Yeah. And so it was a gradual process. No one changes their whole worldview or opinions on just about everything overnight. But when you learn new information slowly and you actually take the time to read, learn different facts and just things that like I wasn't exposed to really. Like as a Republican, you're not exposed to facts. It's a lot about feeling and, feeling like the world is against you and blah, blah, blah. So it took a lot of like relearning. So yeah, it was a process. And I don't expect people to go from like hardcore MAGA to like a hardcore Democrat overnight. That seems disingenuous, so, but I do welcome people that take the time to expose themselves to other people's opinions.
Yeah. So as a marketing specialist, you've been working obviously with the Democratic Party quite a bit. The 2024 election did not go quite as we had hoped. From your perspective, in your interacting, where do you think that we failed when it came to getting people there? And just to jump on it, you can go into it. It seems that there is a Democratic messaging issue that's been pretty consistent all along. How do we get out of that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I remember when I first was like gung ho on joining the Democratic Party and trying to work in the party and find a position in the party. I was like, there's so much I would change. And like, I have all these good ideas about how we can do that. And so I knew I wanted to get into digital comms or digital messaging. So it's like, there's just so much opportunity to push back on Republicans that isn't being done. I think when it comes to the 2024 election, it was kind of an anomaly. It was like Joe Biden was fairly unpopular. Although he shouldn't have been, I felt like he accomplished a lot of really great things. He just didn't have the appeal or the charisma or like, and that's what a lot of people look for and and who they're going to support is someone who can make the case to them, and he couldn't really do that. And then the whole switcheroo with Kamala Harris was really rushed. And although we garnered like a lot of momentum, I just don't think it was enough at the end of the day. And people had a kind of a convoluted memory of how the Donald Trump administration was the first time because it had been 4 years. And so I think it was just a perfect storm, unfortunately. But yeah, that was a tough loss.
So have you seen politics change from the Mitt Romney, John McCain style? Do you think the Democratic Party needs to kind of go into the whole Donald Trump populist style messaging? Is that just the way politics is going these days?
Yeah, I do think so in some ways. I think we focus on, we have issues that are main issues that are really popular, abortion rights and things like that. But I think sometimes we focus too much on those kind of issues or like trans rights. And I know Republicans come for them. And so it makes it like, it's like kind of a back and forth, like we need to defend the trans community. But I think ultimately the Republicans do a really good job of focusing on the issues that affect everybody in their lives, which is like feeling safe, lowering crime, even though they're terrible at it.
Seriously.
Lowering costs, national security, closing the border. Like it's things that like people can really grasp and understand versus saying like the one trans kid in this community is like, we need to fight for them. It's a little bit more of like an abstract thing. So I think they do a good job of appealing to like everyone's broad sense of like safety and like economic prosperity. And they're terrible at all of it. So again, it's like, it's really up to us to like take that narrative and not constantly be defending ourselves, but be like the ones who are pushing the narrative and the ones who are driving the narrative. And so it's just going to have to be a shift that we make where we're just appealing to like everybody almost.
Yeah. Have you noticed the people that are running more nowadays? Because a lot of people have started coming out. I mean, you've already got a mayor in New York that is very populist in how he's run his campaign. He's been compared to, on a broad sense, campaign wise, to the way Trump ran, in a very populist. Do you see a lot more candidates coming out that are running like that are being more appealing? And do you see the voter base like responding to it?
Yeah, absolutely. You can see the momentum that he's garnered, Zoran, in New York, and how people truly feel like they know him. They feel like they resonate with him, and that he's one of them. And so I can see why he's garnered so much popularity and momentum. And I think it's wrong of the Democratic Party to like distance themselves from that, because that's what we want, no matter what it looks like in which candidate. That's what works in New York City. And so we should be embracing that. That doesn't mean he would be super popular in like Arkansas or South
Or
Carolina.
Idaho or somewhere?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not where he's running. So it's
Right.
like we need to have more of like a dynamic view on this stuff. There's one other guy though who is like, his campaign methodology is to go to like fraternities on campuses.
Oh, wow.
And go talk to them about how the price of beer is being raised by Donald Trump.
That's great.
I know. And I'm like, that is genius. I don't know why I hadn't thought of that before. But truly, like college kids, what do they care about? They care about alcohol. They care about food. They care about basic things like that. So he's speaking right to them, going to them in their homes. And he's so popular. And so when he goes back to the campus, they all love him and they like welcome him. And so I'm going to find the name of him because I need to remember that. But I'm like, that's exactly what we should be doing. And like, I love the creativeness of that too,
Yeah.
Embrace more creative methods of campaigning, because just being on Twitter all day really doesn't do much.
Yeah. So I kind of want to go with a negative and a positive. Where do you see the Democratic Party still struggling now as a whole?
Well, I think right now we're struggling on which direction to go in. Are we like going to be trying to go more progressive and embrace more progressive ideas, or like are we trying to like play it even more safe than we were before, because of how far right the country has swung gradually over time? And so I think there's just a lot of confusion about where do we want to go and what's going to work nationally, not just locally. But I think ultimately we need to be common sense on a lot of issues. And that's something I've said a lot, is there are issues that Republicans will use against us. And I think we can be the common sense party that finds the common sense solutions, because we are 99% of the time, and Republicans like to pretend some issues don't exist, like gun violence or healthcare premiums or things like that. And they're like, it is what it is. They kind of just like close their blinds, and we're the ones addressing them. And so I think we have the opportunity to be the common sense party in a lot of these different issues, and we don't have to swing far one way or the other. So hope we do more of that.
That brings up an interesting question to me, based on also what you talked about earlier. So obviously things such as trans issues and abortion rights and stuff like that are important. How do we balance in our messaging the desire to protect humanity and human rights and keep that, but also integrate the messaging that also speaks to potentially a broader base, or at least allows the potential of more people listening to the messages of the Democratic Party?
Yeah, I think, well, for one thing, when it comes to abortion rights, I think it's largely a religious driven issue. And so I think we need to continue to remind people, we don't make laws based off of religious issues or religious opinions. And if you don't like abortion and that's against your religion, then don't get an abortion. And so that's something that like I think we're really struggling with, and the Republican Party is totally embraced, which is this like Christo nationalism.
Yeah.
Like, this is the party of God and like the Bible, and they read the Bible before like, just like cringy stuff like that. But the founders made it very clear they wanted a separation of religion and laws. And so that's part of it. But also I think there's going to be a lot of people over the coming years who have been negatively affected by the abortion bans across southern states or red states. And so we need to be like highlighting them in their stories. And a lot of times people truly don't care about something until it affects them personally. And so I think they're gonna see more of that, more people in their community who have been affected by this stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough question.
Yeah.
About how do we get them to care about something that they don't understand and they don't want to understand. But I've seen time and time again, like people, once they're personally affected or they have a trans kid, it's like their opinion changes completely. And so it's breaking through the propaganda of Fox News and reminding people trans people have existed and they will continue to exist through the end of time. And abortion has existed and it will continue to exist. It's just not going to be safe and people are going to suffer. And so yeah, that is the gist of it, but it's a tough question.
Yeah. I was talking with some friends of mine earlier today, actually, about the danger that we're seeing of media companies all kind of becoming owned by the same 1, 2, or 3 people. Those people focusing more on appeasing the current administration, which definitely makes our ability to get the correct information and trust the information more difficult. As someone who is doing this for a living, what suggestions would you have for people such as myself or anyone else who's doing more progressive content creation, but also people that are looking to find information on how best to, like, where do you think that we should go now that, potentially the whole method of interacting might change with this monopoly of capitalism owning our media system?
Yeah, it feels very dark at times when you see how they're all surrounding and like, kind of like surrounding themselves around Trump and they're in the Oval Office. You see Mark Zuckerberg, you see Jeff Bezos, you see Tim Cook. It's like, what is happening? And I think a lot of it is like they're scared, even though they shouldn't be, but they're scared of retaliation by this government, which is so authoritarianism and so wrong and backwards, but it's at the price of the American people. And so I think as users, we can push back on it. You need to take more time to like discern what information is true and what's not. I think a lot of misinformation gets spread so easily and quickly before it's even fact checked, if it's fact checked at all. And so it's up to us to be informed consumers of information and then also informed like distributors of information. But I would say just like get on every platform, like diversify. I've tried to get on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook now, even Substack. I really like Substack a lot.
Me too.
Yeah, and that's a good way to like consume longer form like information, like articles, newsletters, and things like that, or independent media. But yeah, it is a scary time, and it's a tough time for free speech because it also feels like if you do say certain things, you're going to get doxxed,
Yeah.
and that's happened to me, where people are like posting my personal information and saying this girl should never work in politics again or something. It's so ass backwards. And it's like, I didn't say anything insane. I didn't, I'm
Right.
not like, threatening anybody or like, but that's just like the culture that we live in right now. And so, yeah, it does feel scary. Like if you do say something, you're going to get punished for it. You're going to get fired from your job. I think a lot of federal employees are fearful of that. So, yeah, I don't know, but to be like an informed consumer and an informed distributor of information is really important.
Yeah. It definitely feels as though just our need to be involved is greater than it's probably ever been before. It's tough to be patient and let people wake up. And I think that's kind of where I think I want to end this is how do we, the left is very broad. We've got very broad ideas, very broad things that are important to us. How do we communicate with a group of people that in some sense feels on the complete other side of the planet and how we view everything in this country?
Yeah, it does. And it feels like we view Republicans as like impediments and things in the way of like what we need to get done. And they view us as like trying to change this country in like a super radical way. And it just like the divide has gotten so far apart. And a lot of that has to do with social media and like firmly planting yourself on one side, and that's the information you're consuming and seeing and you're interacting with, and that's all you're going to see. And so sometimes I try to like I just take a step back and I'm like I try to imagine something from their point of view, and like how would it feel if the if things were reversed. And I'm like, okay, I can understand like the outrage that they might feel. For example, when Donald Trump was going through all his court cases and trials for his numerous crimes. I mean, for me, I understood why he was being prosecuted for these certain crimes, especially crimes related to like January 6th and stuff. But to them, it didn't feel that way. And so I kept like trying to like imagine if the tables were turned and it was like Joe Biden, I'd be outraged. And now it is happening to people on our side, but it's a little different because it's Donald Trump literally conspiring with the DOJ, but they feel like it's retaliation in some way. And so I don't know. I have to like take a step back and say, okay, how would I feel if the tables were turned? And then like, if I were a Republican instead of a Democrat, how would I be viewing what's going on right now? And they probably feel justified. And so I'm like, okay, like I don't feel justified. I think it's wrong. I think it's immoral what's happening to like James Comey, Letitia James, and I think John Bolton's coming up next. But it's really just like down a list of people, but they feel like it's justified. So I think we just have to do a better job of like understanding when you come from one camp, like how you're going to view certain things going on in the world. And I also need to put my sword down too at times. I think the first person to put their sword down is like the person who can like help bring us all to the table on certain issues. And so like, for example, like the peace deal that's going on in Gaza and Israel, like we will see if that is something that lasts. And I genuinely hope it is. But like, I think a lot of people's first instinct on the left is to like criticize. And I'm just like, you know what? If that is what the outcome is, and that's something people on the left or the far left have been wishing and hoping for a long time, if that's the outcome, then great, because that's something we all want. And that's better for the world and for the country. So I think like there are times to be outraged, absolutely, and to point out everything that is wrong and corrupt with this administration. But at the same time, it's like, well, okay, we can also accept when some things are actually just genuinely good. And I wish that they would do the same thing for us. Once we can do that, I think we'll get to a better place. Yeah, it is very dark at times. I think we might not be able to get to a place of like unity in this country until Donald Trump is long out of power. He's the instigator of so much vitriol and so many negative words. He's really not a unifier in any sense of the word. And so I really think it's going to take him being out of power for quite a long time for us to maybe start to heal as a country.
And I feel like I need to make this caveat just to anyone listening. If you are a member of the BIPOC community or the LGBTQIA community, and you don't feel like you can, as a person that is feels like they're on the front line of being attacked by the Republican Party, you are not. I can't speak for Ally, but I know when I say something like that, I'm speaking about people that look like me, mostly. If you are a member of that community, as much as, yes, if you have that capability of stepping forth and being accepting, that's
also don't do it if it's bad for you or
correct.
And I think someone as like me, I come from that world a little bit, so I feel like I can try to like rationalize or try to like have conversations, but honestly, like sometimes it is just not worth it, and these people are just not, they're like too far gone to even converse with. And I have people like that in my family, and I'm like, we just don't talk because it's not good for anybody.
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me like it's going to be a very interesting next year to 3 years, and I look forward to seeing what comes of at least the midterm elections, because there's a lot of cool things going on. Do you want to let people know where they can find you if they want to learn more about you and all that stuff?
Yeah, I'm on like pretty much everything, but I think on Instagram, I'm at Ally Sammarco. Same thing for Threads and Facebook. And then Twitter, Ally_Sammarco. And what else? Oh, TikTok, I'm also at Ally Sammarco. So yeah, you can find me. I also have like a link tree in my bio that will show you everywhere you can find me. So.
Perfect. And we'll put that down in the description below. Ally, thanks for spending some time and talking about this not easy situation that we're in. It's really awesome to sit down and talk with someone who was in that world and as deep as you were, and how that process changed over as well. Thank you everyone for listening. If you like what we do here, please make sure you subscribe, hit all the buttons down below. But we also are on TikTok and Apple and Spotify and all the other places. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time on A More Perfect Podcast. Bye, guys.